Okay, Assalamualaikum semua, and a very good afternoon. So my name is Zafrul, I guess can call me Zaf. So saya rasa sebab ada dalam crowd ni ada yang foreigner juga, so saya try rojakkan lah saya punya talk ni, so supaya yang foreigner tu pun can understand a little bit of the talk, right? I want to say a big thank you to MaGIC for doing wonderful stuff with our local ecosystem. And this most recent launch of the Bumi unit, right? Very excited to be here and to share some of our experiences. So first, when I dapat this invitation to talk about validating ideas using Lean Startup, I was very excited. Just a show of hands, kat dalam crowd ni siapa yang familiar dengan Lean Startup? Okay, so very few hands. So okay, fantastic. Because the way I prepared it as well, I did have a little bit of slides to talk about what is a Lean Startup and what startup all about. So first, okay, just a little bit of background about myself and my experiences. I'm the founder of Code Ar.my and Code Ar.my X. I also have my own startup, and like what I said, Code Ar.my is an online accelerator, startup accelerator for non-technical founders. Right. Besides that, I'm also a Lean Startup enthusiast. So I do banyak lah Lean Startup machine. Ada workshop in KL about Lean Startup. We also organize Lean Startup Circle. It's a monthly meetup for Lean Startup punya enthusiasts. And I like to do a lot of online stuff. Down there is something called Mentor Me, where we do online mentoring for orphans in Aceh to help them speak better English. And just to basically help them with anything that they might have, right? So that's a little bit about my background in Lean Startup and why I think MaGIC called me to talk about this topic of validating ideas using Lean Startup. So first, I would like to frame this my talk, right, and share what is Lean Startup. So number one, to those of you yang tak pernah dengar apa itu startup sebenarnya, right? And to those that know about startup, I know there's a lot of definitions about startup, but I like this guy, Dave McLeod, and he says that startups are a confused company, right? And they're confused about three things. They don't know the product, they don't know the customer, and they don't know how to make money. The moment that the startup figures out all these things, they stop being a startup and being a real company, right? So actually, if you listen to a lot of the startup founders and they say, so have you started making money yet? And they say, no, we haven't. We just want to learn from our customers and so. Sebenarnya tak tahu macam nak buat duit lagi. That is the truth, right? And if you hear startup saying that, we are in beta, we haven't launched our product, they still haven't figured out what the product is, right? So startups need a bunch of confused people, but we want to change the world, but we're just confused about all these three things, right? So that's what Dave McLeod from Finance Startup say. I have another definition which I think also is, I love this definition as well. Yang katakan startup is also very similar to what Dave McLeod says. A startup is a organization designed to search for a scalable and repeatable business model, right? So what Dave McLeod says, we are startups, we are looking for this, next big thing, right? However, a lot of people make the mistakes and nyatakan startup ni, startup is the same thing. It's just a smaller version of a big company. So big company, in the organization you have your HR, you have your finance, you have your customer support, and things that we learn in business schools and MBAs, right? So business schools and MBAs are great to prepare you for the corporate world, right? But that's not what startup is, and a lot of people make this mistake. Right? So you're not sure, you're confused about things, right? And you're in this constant search mode. So that is what a startup is, right? So what's a lean startup, right? What's a lean startup? So basically, I like to say a lean startup, right, has this. So we're all confused. We're all these confused guys and figuring out the product, figuring out how to make money. So the lean startup, was made very famous by the guys in Silicon Valley, right? Taking three components. Okay, since we don't know all of this, let's combine customer development, with what we do in terms of agile customer development, agile development as well, and borrowing a process made famous by Toyota. Right? So Toyota had this great manufacturing process. So, combine everything together, right? And we've got ourselves a lean startup. Oops, okay, yeah. So, in a lean startup, this is what the process looks like, right? So, what we are doing is that we are searching, right? We're constantly searching for a repeatable and scalable business model. We're searching for who's going to be our customers. We're searching for, what's the product going to be like, right? We're searching for how we're going to make money, how much we're going to charge, who's going to pay for it. Right? So one good example is that how Google couldn't make money, didn't know how to make money in the early days, right? I think Google lepas 2 tahun baru they figured out we're going to make money using an online advertising model, right? So, yeah, and I know that some people also ask me, okay, is this search or is lean startup only applicable during the early phases, right? When you're only thinking about the idea. So in the life cycle of a lean startup as well, right? You can see. When you're in the beginning, when you're trying to figure out what we call the problem solution fit and the product market fit, right? It's all about learning. It's all about validated learning. However, now when you figure out these 3 things that what Dave McLeod said, when you figure out the product and you have figured out the customers and how to pay, you start to scale. So the lean startup, the methodology, the build, measure, learn loop, right? Moves from validated learning to optimization. How do you optimize things? How do you make it better, quicker, faster, more efficient, right? So the outputs of the experiments are a bit different. Instead of learning, you're trying to kind of like optimize things, right? So yeah, so that kind of frames in terms of the discussion, and hopefully I didn't see a lot of hands going up about lean startup. Hopefully now you have a slight understanding about what startups is and what's lean startup on top of that, right? Okay, let me see. Yeah, oops, I had to go back. Sorry about that. So anyway, in a lean startup, I love this saying as well, when they say like building a startup is like jumping off a cliff, right, and trying to assemble a plane on the way down, right? And why you're saying that is that there's a definite time where if you don't build your plane, you will die, right? You run out of money, competitor kills you, right? But basically startups run out of money lah, okay? You raise amount of funding, you have only X number of months, kan, untuk for you to kind of take off. So if you can see here what Dave McLeod said, we are confused, right? So that guy jumping off the cliff in item number 3, he's still thinking of, oh, maybe I should build a bicycle, right? Whereas and then just before he just touches the ground, just before he's about to die, he figures out, I need to build a plane, and he builds a plane, and he takes off, and he's fine, right? So if any of you have been in a startup, you know what I'm talking about. It feels like that every day. You feel like you're about to die tomorrow, that kind of thing. But it's exciting, but it's also scary at the same time. Because of that, now who knows what this number is? Why did I bring up 98%? Who wants to guess what this number actually symbolizes? Exactly, right? This is the failure rate, right? This is the failure rate of the startups. So everyone dreams about building the next $1 billion company or idea. The truth of the matter is 98% of them fail. It's not easy to build a $1 billion business. It's not easy to be the next Instagram or the next WhatsApp. But the appeal is there, right? The appeal is there, and that's why startups are, founders of startups are crazy enough to do it. So yeah, 98% fail. So because 98% fail, the lean startup methodology emphasizes a lot on validating ideas, right? And why you should validate your ideas. So in lean startup, we use this quite a lot, right? So every customer has a problem, and every problem has a solution. But if you flip it the other way around, not every solution has a problem, and not every problem has a customer, right? So one example about that is Segway, right? Very, very famous. It was a big hype when it first came out. Steve Jobs said that it was going to be, as big as PC, right? And there was a big hype around it, right? And solution-wise, it worked. There was nothing wrong with the Segway. But Segway as a solution didn't really have a customer, right? And the customer didn't really have a problem. Now, what happened about this is that then they started to retrofit. How can we find ways to use the solution? So they didn't start by validating the idea. They loved a lot. They quickly built the solution. And a lot of us actually, masa kita buat ni pun, we think about solution first. Every one of us, when we have an idea, we're like, solution, solution, solution. I have the next best solution. I have the next best thing. It's going to rock the world. All I need is I need to build my product and 1 million people will start using it tomorrow, right? I will be selling my company to Google for 50 million in 24 months, right? They think about the solution, and in other words, kita shock sendiri lah selalu, right? We always shock sendiri, right? So, I'm going to go back to this because this is a very, very, very powerful statement, right? About that. So, a lot of us start with, we're thinking that, we build a solution first. Obviously, we start from point number 3, and that's where we get caught. That's where we make the most mistakes. So, so this is why we should, validate your ideas. So now, coming down to the talk in terms of in lean startup, how do you validate the ideas? So I'm going to focus slightly masa kita mula-mula lah, right? When we have an idea, how do we validate? What's the techniques in lean startup validate the ideas? And maybe I want to share our example on how I've used lean startup on myself, right, and my startup, looking at examples of other people that actually use lean startup as well. By the way, I think Cheryl Yeo, I think she's the CEO of MaGIC. She is also a very big proponent of lean startup. She went for the lean startup workshop in 2010 in New York, and she used lean startup to build her business and sell it, and eventually then come back to Malaysia. Right. So there's 3 things, right? Something called exploration, pre-sale and pitch, and the last thing is called concierge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give some examples. Now I hope that the examples that I shared today will inspire you to have ideas in terms of how would you then validate your ideas and not shock sendiri, right? So that you will build a great, amazing startup. Okay, hold on. Right. So, I like to share our own experience. So, we believe in what we call drinking our own Kool-Aid or eating your own dog food, however you want to put it. Right. So, we started by being a fat startup, right? We were not a lean startup in any manner whatsoever. In fact, we had an idea of a solution. So we did the mistake of thinking about, we had a big solution. And make things worse, we entered this thing, like this lab with all these consultants and government agencies and industry players. So one thing we learned is that when you start with a solution and you want to find justification or research or something that will help justify what you're building, you will find it. There is a lot of information and data on the web, right? And if you bring along world-class consultants, they are even worse. They'll find you all the relevant information, research, because they pay Gartner, they pay Forrester, they pay everybody, right? You will get the data, right? So we found out that in 2 months, we built this business plan that showed us we will make over 5 billion ringgit by 2020, right? So, and we did 0 validation. We didn't do any form of validation. We didn't check with the market, right? But we were convinced because, hey, you know what? We've got all this data and research, and from all these consultants, right? So, in short, right? Summary: we failed. We failed, but we didn't fail fast. It was a slow process, and we wasted a lot of time and a lot of money. So our turning point was that one thing good about that experience is that experience me all over the world, right? I was lucky enough to get to explore US and Europe, and we learned about startups from Stanford in Palo Alto, and we were lucky, to be honest. When we were in Europe, we met someone, and then we stumbled upon Lean Startup Machine in London. So that's where I think for us the turning point was. And for example, the first thing that we learn is about exploration, right? So exploration is simply put is, for you, right, to design a script, questions, figure out who is your target market and persona, and really go on the ground in the market and conduct face-to-face interviews, right? So we did this with, every day we went out to the market and we met 20 of our potential customers, right, in London, in Malaysia. So we did it for a month. So by the end of it, I remember that we ran it exactly like an experiment, and we talked to about 300, 400 people, right, who were really our customers. And to be honest, that gave us so much feedback and so much know-how, and it quickly validated some of our assumptions. So this is one of the simplest things that you can do with regards to lean startup, and also one of the most difficult things, right? Just imagine if I tell you today, go and talk to 10 strangers. How many of us would do it? How many of us would confidently do it and know how to do it, right? So this is what we went through. We were in Europe. We went to Paris, London, Dublin, and we had to find strangers, and we had to find people that will give us 20 minutes of their time to help us validate our assumptions, right? So this is a technique that we did. And what we found out was that, for example, first we had an assumption that, oh yeah, all these Europeans, we had a solution of actually bringing high quality developers to Europeans, and we thought, hey, they would like our developers from Asia sebab murah kan, price point murah and everything like that. So that was the assumption. So we spent a couple of months building this platform and all this kind of stuff. But after all these interviews, we found out that we were wrong, right? They don't like people from Asia, because they group us all together as Bangladeshis, Myanmar, Vietnam, Indonesian, everyone. They don't know the difference. They just know a bunch of Asians, right? And they had a big I would say ethical or professionalism issue, okay? But what we found out was that hey, I do need help, but I need help with something called a CTO, a co-founder. I cannot find a co-founder here in London. So we didn't know this, right? Tapi only when we started going and we started doing exploration interviews, then we found out this information. And surprisingly, if you are solving a problem for someone and you meet them, they will actually give you the time of day, right? Because you're helping solve a particular problem, right? So this is something which we learned as well, and at the same time we also found out some painful problem from public universities, and we discovered that if we solve problem for a public university and we solve problem for entrepreneurs in Europe, right, these two guys will help each other out. Okay, so this is something that we discovered, right? And there's something in lean startup called pre-sell and pitch. So what it means is that if you think you have a solution, if you think you have a unique value proposition, test it in the market, right? Sell it, put a price point, and see whether people will pay for it or not. So this is something that we did in a day, and believe it or not, we quickly launched our service and our product. Code Ar.my was launched in Europe, and Code Ar.my X was launched in a university in Malacca, right? And we wanted to see whether people will buy or not, right? So again, previously we were a fat startup, we never validated, we never did all of this, right? But this is something that we did in a day. I remember the Code Ar.my website, me and my co-founder, we sat down in a desk, we didn't go out anywhere, and we say, okay, we're going to build it, we're going to plug in payment mechanisms on the website, and we're going to launch it today, right? And we made that decision at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by 4 p.m. we launched the site with ability for people to pay, because we wanted to test whether or not anyone would pay us money for it. and we were crazy enough to say, pay us £3,000 to help you find a co-founder. And more crazy is that we found people started paying us for it, right? We saw transactions and we saw money. So that's actually the technique of something called pre-sale, right? In terms of how do you collect money and how do you make sure, how do you validate whether customers want to buy it or not. So the next technique is something called concierge. So you know that, okay, you've done your exploration, you went and interviewed people, you went and talked to customers, and then you went and did a pre-sale, and then people say, hey, you know what, I want to buy this from you, right? And originally what people think is that, oh, I need a product, I need to deliver the service online. This is a technique called concierge. Now, who wants to guess what's a concierge? Okay, almost there. Concierge means you are manually doing the service, right? You are they call it fake it till you make it, right? So you are replicating something, but you are faking everything. So online, people think that it's happening online, but you in the background are like, like you get an answer, for example, give us what you want, we will give you 3 automatic, recommendations. That 3 automatic recommendations is a human being looking at the requirements and typing in something and hitting submit, right? So we decided that we didn't want to build a product because like I said previously, we were a fat startup, right? We made the mistakes, so we decided, no, let's not build a product. Let's concierge the service and the solution manually. So we tested about 97 online services. There are so many online services out there in the market that you can put all together and you can have like a product or service that you can deliver online, right? So these are some of our favorite ones that I'm showing up here in terms of how do we actually simulate some of the online services, right? So I even had to buy I paid like $49.90 for a 1 password keeper so that I can keep my 97 logins and everything like that, right? So there's so many of them out there. Essentially, this is what we did. So we had an online training service, right, for students here that we totally concierge. So the students felt that they were part of this online thing, but we put all these things together and we gave the students an experience that they are going through this online training program. But in reality, whenever a student does something, there's one guy in the office that has to manually update this page, right? So and you can see here, this is us tracking every single thing that the student does, right? Oh, I did this quest, I submitted this, I troubleshooted, I asked questions to the mentors, etc., etc., etc. Right? So we tracked every single transaction, right? And we use, again, we'd like to do a lot of online stuff. So we use things like Skype, and we got everyone together. Right now, you can see it, mentors from all over the world, and we delivered the service manually using concierge, right? So in Lean Startup, we concierge. This is the technique. This is the mantra, right? We're saying, learn first, code last, right? So again, the concierge allows you to do that. It allows you to do things that don't scale in the beginning. It allows you to do as much learning as possible. It allows you to test your hypotheses, it tests your ideas, and so that you don't make the mistake and you don't be part of the 98%, right? So we chose to do this. We chose because we did the mistakes before. We built a product no one wanted, and we decided this time around we're going to learn first, code last. So we don't have that much success yet, but I think one thing that we were very glad to see was that we, just by concierging, we generated 250,000 ringgit, right? And for next year, we have orders of about more than $1 million ringgit. So we say, okay, you know what? I know it's not the big money yet, but we were really excited to see these numbers, and just by hacking something together, we were able to deliver a service and make money on top of that. And now we are like, okay, now it's the time to scale. This is what our product looks like, and now we've decided, okay, now we're going to build the product, right? So again, we learn first, and now we're coding, and now we're scaling it. So the other thing is that, right now, all these techniques that I just shared with you and explained. One of the things that we do is something called Lean Startup Machine in KL. Kita dah buat 2 dah. The first one was in May, second one was just last week in early December. We had close to about 200 people come for both workshops, and I would say that the reason that we brought Lean Startup and the Lean Startup methodology kat Malaysia is that, so we knew that, for example, we tested the Lean Startup methodology on ourselves first, okay? So unless we've done it, then it's hard for us to tell other people to do it. So we tested it, we know it works, we made the mistake, and we had to go all around the world. Like I mentioned, we had to go to the States, we had to go to Europe, and while we were in London, the guys that do Lean Startup Machine in New York asked me, hey, are you interested to bring Lean Startup Machine to Malaysia? I said, yeah, of course, because I know it helped us. And they said, if you're interested to want to help the community and give back to the community, this is something great to do. And that's why the reason why we brought it back. We brought it to Malaysia. Lean Startup Machine is a global brand. It's about 300 in about 300 cities, and it basically gives you a very condensed experience. And dalam masa 3 hari, you get to experience everything from like exploration to pitch, concierge, so it kind of brings you to a hands-on experience to go through the Lean Startup process, right? So something different, like we mentioned, something different, mantra. If you're here for a 3-day workshop, normally what you think is that you're going to be inside the building, you're going to be listening and doing stuff. In reality, this workshop, we kick you out of the building. You spend most of the time outside the building because you are building, we want you to build a solution for a customer, right? And solve a customer's problem. The customers are not in the room. So if you have assumption or you need to find answers, there is no point debating and brainstorming among the few of you in the room. You'll never get the answers, right? The answers are with the customers, and the customers are out of the building. So in order for you to find the answers, you need to get out of the building. So we repeat this a lot. So 70% of the time you'll be out of the building. You come back, there'll be a little bit of talks, a little bit of mentors that help you with regards to validating or understanding some of the data that you find. Okay, so yeah, part of it is, like I mentioned, in terms of how do you validate your ideas. And here, this is basically some of the examples or the tools in terms of how do you go through validating your ideas and go through the process of actually doing a pitch, doing an exploration, doing a pitch, and doing concierge. Oops. So just some examples of the last LSM. So this was the team. If you can see here, the 3 guys were actually university students, right? And I think you're here as well, right? Yeah, he was there. So he is in the picture, Khairul, right? And he came for, I think he came for the LSM. I think some of his students, the team members, they were invalidated in 4 hours, right? And they were like, hey Zafrul, I feel really demotivated, because I had this idea and we were invalidated. Right? So I was like, why are you so demotivated? Right? You should take this as a plus point. Right? You have learned in just 4 hours, right, that you had an idea for something, and you quickly found out that you had to change it. I said, just imagine if you didn't do this, you spend 6 months of your life building a product, right, quite thinking that it's going to be an amazing success, and the day that you launch, you find out that you have been dead wrong. So how would you feel? Right? So sometimes I call this the emotional investment more than the financial investment. It's like you have invested your blood, sweat and tears, your dreams, your aspirations into this new venture, this new startup, and you haven't validated it, right? If you are wrong, it's a lot more difficult to recover from the emotional investment than it is to recover from the financial investment, right? And so And this is some of the thinking process that we teach some of the teams. So now they are like, okay, you know, this is an experiment. They understood that they were glad that they were invalidated, and they very quickly designed, you know, pivoted to new ideas and new direction. Right. So this is the winning team. Interesting idea. He had, you know, he's actually an entrepreneur from Temerloh, Pahang. And you know, he's been having this idea. He knows that, you know, he's not sure whether it's going to work, but in 3 days he's managed to bring the idea, and he's managed to validate that this is something that he should be doing, and something that he should be doing full time. Right. So his idea was that, you know, he wants to do a cinema on demand. Just for example, if you like if you miss the movie Gravity and you wanted to watch it again, right, and the cinema doesn't show it, right, so he wanted to design this app that will allow fans to say, hey, you know, TGV, can you please show Gravity again in IMAX, for example. Right? So he had great feedback from this, and he actually won the LSM competition. So one of the things that we do as well, and you know, from Code Ar.my, is that we've designed a follow-up program. Now this is also from feedback from the first LSM. We've got criticized because, you know, hey, you know, this is a 3-day program. What next, right? Are you just going to leave us high and dry? You know, we want to continue our journey, right? So what we did in the past was that we brought all the partners from the ecosystem, and we say, hey, participant, you know, you can go to A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? We wanted to give them choice, but that choice actually made them confused. They're like, dude, just tell me, you know, give me one direction, tell me what to do next, right? So we've just quickly designed this. And we've then done a follow-up program for 20 participants who have come back with different ideas, with different teams, because sometimes in LSM you don't participate together with the whole team. You just, one of you, maybe 3 people, seorang pergi LSM, you know, lagi 2, you know, stayed back, right? So they come back and they participate with the entire team. So this is something that we have done as well. And the last one of the things is that we wanted to highlight that how can lean startup work in an enterprise, right? What if you're not an entrepreneur? What if you're not, you know, this guy who's trying to take over the world, right? What if you're working in a company and you have to come up with a new innovative product? Can you apply lean startup? You know, can you think like a startup within an enterprise, within an organization? Can you innovate like how startups do from Silicon Valley in an organization? So obviously we're doing this, so the answer is yes. In lean startup, when you deep dive in the techniques, there's a lot of techniques that you can apply. And we've managed to convince Mara, of all people, right? And Mara wants to solve the problem. You know, they are the human capital champion of the nation. They want to solve the human capital issue, right? And we told them that if you take this as an IT contract and you get vendors and suppliers to give you a proposal, I guarantee you it's not going to work, right? Because they have like a ton of Mara platforms or websites out there that no one's using, right? They're not solving the problem because, like I said, you know, when you want to write a proposal, you will find the data to substantiate your claims, right? Confirm one, right? Which vendor on planet Earth will deliver a proposal that doesn't make sense, right? So, and all these are invalidated assumptions, right? So right now Mara is starting, and they adopted the lean startup process, and right now they're starting with, you know, they know they have a problem hypothesis, right? They have a customer hypothesis, they have a solution hypothesis, and they know they have a very powerful unfair advantage, which is the Mara database, right? So they're moving forward. Again, they are a startup, like what Dave McLeod said. In truth, they are confused about what is the product. They are confused about, you know, who are the customers, and they don't know how to monetize this, right? So that's why I say, you know, and as what I previously showed, you can move forward in this realm of uncertainty, right? Because a startup that is a temporary organization designed to search for a scalable and repeatable business model. So with a bit of tweaking, and understanding contextually how to apply lean startup or the lean enterprise can also create innovative products in the market. Right? So if I'm down to my last 2 slides, and I've got 10 more minutes for Q&A. So if there's any takeaway, guys, right, I really want you guys to take away this statement here, right? Because it's a very powerful statement. It says that, you know, it grounds you, and it says that every customer has a problem and every problem has a solution. So now if you start the customer and you focus on what we call the customer problem hypothesis, right, you are going to be in great shape. But if you start with the solution hypothesis, then you might end up with a segue, right? There's nothing wrong, no one's saying that you cannot build completely working solution or product or app or hardware, but you might end up, there's a possibility that you might end up with a solution that doesn't have a problem. So universities do a lot of this, right? They do a lot of research, and a lot of the research do not get commercialized because, you know, of there's no one cares about it. That's the reason why it doesn't get commercialized. So we do have this mantra. Again, we talk about speed. You know, it's a very famous mantra: fail fast, succeed faster. Start with the assumption that you're going to be wrong, right? And in your journey of a startup, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. So make the mistakes as quickly as possible, right? Get through your first 100 mistakes, because every single mistake that you make will take you nearer to success. So that's it, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you, MaGIC, for inviting me. And yeah, if you wanted this presentation, drop me an email or find me on LinkedIn, and I can take some questions.
Terima kasih kepada Encik Zafrul. Kita ada masa sedikit. Ada apa-apa soalan untuk Encik Zafrul? Mungkin 1 ataupun 2 saja. Ya.
Public university problem, Boleh elaborate sikit tak? What do you mean? What was your experience with the public university?
So you cakap pasal public university, I think with especially public university yang luar KL kan. So one of the biggest problems is that there is a gap between the industry and the university. I think that's quite well known. So we did exploration with students. We did exploration with university lecturers as well. So what we found out was 50% of lecturers tak nak admit, 50% will admit, right? But generally, what we found out is that the students actually don't know about a lot of things. One good example is that I gave a briefing to about 70 students, right? About computer science ni. I asked them, how many of you have heard of Silicon Valley? 3 angkat tangan, right? So that's the state. So how can you do computer science and you tak tahu mana Silicon Valley, right? So for example, that is what we saw as, okay, there is a real gap here. I don't know what the students have been learning, but this give you an example of some of the problems that we saw. The other problem as well is that lecturers, when they say because you're dealing with technology kan, so bila dealing dengan teknologi selalu berubah, right? So kalau lecturers dia nak update the curriculum dengan MQA, it takes 2 years. So by the time they update dah memang lapuk dah, right? So we came in with the solution to say, let us be the one. You will teach the fundamental stuff that takkan that will never change. We will teach. We will bring in the new technology stuff that will always change with the market. So those are some of the examples that just to share with you, like what we learned from our exploration with the public university. Yep.
Okay.
Validating your product or whatever you're creating. So you say for us to go out and ask questions, see our target market. But what are the questions that you ask? What kind of questions?
Oh, okay. So it gets a bit detailed. So just imagine that you're acting almost like a scientist, right? So when a scientist, you have to predetermine the questions. You have to predetermine the questions depending on whatever you're trying to validate. So when you talk about lean startup, you will have something called a riskiest assumption. Benda yang you tak tahu apa pasal lah. So you have many assumptions. The technique will also help you understand what is your riskiest assumption. So based on that, your riskiest assumption, you go and devise certain questions that you want to ask your target user or user persona, right? And you also have to almost predetermine what is the success criteria uphand. So for example, out of these 5 questions, I want to get a positive from 70% of the people that I'm going to interview. So it really depends contextually in what you're trying to validate, what you're trying to find out. But the lean startup technique will help you. There's also a technique on how you script the question, how you devise it, how you make sure that it's not biased. So the best way I can think about when it's like almost like a scientist, doing experiment in the lab. It's just that you're not using it with lab mice, using it with people in the market.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are running short of time. Let's give another round of applause to Encik Zafrul.
Thank you.